Okay.
We're all good.
There's a delay there or something.
Good evening, board members, members of the public, and applicants. We'll call to order this meeting number 21-03, March 18th of the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee. I just want to take roll call first. I'm looking for Dean and Vance.
Here.
Vance. No Dean. Okay, so I guess Vance and Jill are going to online. And we have Raymond, Annette, Gerald, Brian, Dennis, Sam, Jill, and Vance in attendance. So item number 1, excuse me, is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Moved by Annette, second by Gerald. Ready to question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Item number 2 is the approval of our minutes from our last meeting, February 18th. Our last regular meeting, February 18th, 2021. Everybody's received the minutes, have a chance to read them, any errors or omissions?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from February 18th as presented.
Thank you, Joe. Moved by Joe, second by Raymond. Ready for the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3, declaration of conflict of interest. Anyone have-
Mr. Chair, actually under section 8, the first item for views and bylaws regarding St. Andrews PAC, I think I will declare conflict on that item.
Oh, okay, Jill, thank you. Just let us know, or just want to come to that, you can just mute or whatever, and then we'll.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
I guess that's the last one anyway, isn't it, till the next meeting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I declare conflict on number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah, I know one of the people that's objecting to the.
Okay. So Jill has declared a conflict for number 8 and Gerald for number 6.
Just for the one item on section 8, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah. There's several in there, so.
Okay. Item number 4, terms and condition applications. Item 21-03-01, Terry Way.
That'll be me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Vivian, you have the floor.
Let me share my screen with all of you. Okay, good evening, everyone. We will be looking at item number 21-03-01 together tonight. It's a terms and conditions applications for Terry Way. And this should be a nice and simple application because we have looked at this file not long ago under a different light. So again, the applicant is Terry. The property is PID 151-74642 in St. George. This property has recently been rezoned from R2 to R1. And the request here is to locate a new mini home as the main use of this R1 zoned property. Under section 3.2.1, a mini home is a permitted main use in R1 zone subject to terms and conditions as per the Town of St. George zoning bylaw. This development is also subject to other provisions such as section 4.1.20 being the standards for mini homes, landscaping requirements, and etc. So the purpose of imposing terms and conditions on a mini home is to ensure that it is compatible with the R1 zone as well as the neighborhood. Staff recommended that only one mini home is to be allowed on this property. This is just to ensure that there are no multiple mini homes on a property that will create this mini home park-like setting. And this does not prevent the applicant from building an accessory dwelling unit, which is allowed in the R1 zone, as long as he does not do it with another mini home. Section 4.1.20, being the standards for mini homes, has a comprehensive list of requirements dictating how the mini home should locate and where it should be located on a property. In staff's opinion, this is sufficient to ensure that this mini home will be properly set up and it will look like a single family dwelling for as much as possible. If following all the 11 requirements, staff believe this will be a high quality development that does not need to be screened from a public view. And that is why staff did not recommend having a fence or a hedge for this development. It is also because, as we can see in the pictures, none of the neighbors have any sort of physical barrier in the front yard. So if we do ask him to do it, it will actually make the property stand out instead of blending in as we intended. Whoops. So PRAC's legal authority to impose terms and conditions on a land use is granted under the Community Planning Act, Section 53, subsection 3C, number 1. So staff recommends that PRAC of the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission apply the following terms and conditions. Number 1, only one mini home is permitted on this lot, being PID 151-74642. Number 2, mini home must meet all standards in section 4.1.20 of the Town of St. George zoning bylaw number 25B. And number 3, all other applicable provisions such as landscaping shall be followed. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Vivian. Do we have any speakers, Alex?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have a fair number of people online tonight. So if somebody wishes to speak to this file, either first, I guess, would be as the applicant. If the applicant is prepared to speak, please use the raise hand function or just type into chat that you wish to speak as the applicant. Mr. Chair, it appears that, the applicant for this file is not wishing to speak. So I turn it back to you.
Okay. Are there any others in favor of it or opposed that wish to speak?
So at this time, again, if you want to raise your hand or type into chat that you wish to speak for or against this file, you may do so now. We have Alina who wishes to speak. So I'm just going to promote you to a speaking role now, Alina. So make sure your microphone's unmuted.
Okay, I'll do it. Hello, I just want to make sure, I want to understand something because we received a letter where it states that 2 units, apartments will be built in that lot. And I just want to make sure, is it 2 buildings or 1 mini home? What's going to happen? I just want to make sure I'm the very first, I'm the most affected if that happens. And that we share the driveway, so I'm the most affected. I just need to know what happens in my yard.
I think I can answer that question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yep, so right now the applicant is only proposing 1 dwelling unit, which is a mini home to be put on the lot. So no 2 dwelling units, only 1 mini home.
Okay. Okay, that was all for now.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from committee members?
Mr. Chair, sorry, I apologize to interrupt, but there is one other member who wishes to speak.
Okay.
Okay, I'm promoting Faith Avery to a speaking role. Faith, you're just gonna have to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Xander. I just wanted, I live right straight across from this area as well. I was not aware it was going to be a mini home place there. I was told it was going to be 2 apartment buildings that will be placed there.
That's not the application we have in front of us.
That's for Carlton Street, right? Or,
No, this one is on South Street. Yes.
okay, okay, Rena, this is the wrong one then. That's why I was confused. Yes, Vivian, we spoke at this at the meeting.
Right. Yeah. So this is a different
Yeah,
application.
that's what confused me there. I thought, wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Avery. Anyone else, Alex?
Mr. Chair, Alina has raised her hand again, so I'm not sure if that is implying that she wishes to speak again, but she's already spoken, so I just letting you know.
I believe we'll move on
Okay.
to the comments from committee members to staff or questions. No comments? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would put forth a motion that we accept staff recommendation as to the terms and conditions as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Moved by Vance and seconded by Annette. Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no opposition to that, the yeas have it, and we'll now move on to item 21-03-05, Millfield Management.
Okay, so that's going to be me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Xander, you've got the floor.
And yeah, I think there was just a little confusion. This is the one that's the 2 apartment buildings. So share my screen and presentation. So this is terms and conditions to place 2 4-unit apartment buildings at 10 School Street, which it's the corner of School in Carlton in St. George. So yeah, proposal to develop 2 4-unit apartment buildings. The PIDs are currently vacant. There have been buildings there in the past, but they've been demolished. The plan does require reconfiguring some property lines. So you'll see the property lines as they are now, and then you'll see them on the plans. And that is actually one of the conditions that it be reconfigured. But we are treating in the St. George zoning bylaw directs us to do this. We treat the 2 properties as one lot. It's one owner and one use. So apartment buildings of up to 4 units are allowed in the R2 residential mixed zone with terms and conditions. This is, it's not Main Street in St. George, but it's very close to downtown. It's a mostly residential neighborhood with some commercial, some institutional, some apartment buildings, some single family homes. It's a very diverse kind of mix of everything. For this file as well, there were 2 small development officer variances. Is the lot. It's those 2 PIDs there, although when the lots get reconfigured, the PID numbers will probably change. This is the zoning map, again, showing it's in the R2 zone. There's your aerial, but that building there and that one, they've been demolished. And this is Main Street in St. George, so where most of the shops and amenities are, so very close walking distance. This is what it looks like, not currently, this is what it looked like about 8 years ago. So that building, that white building there, that's gone now. But this back to where those trees are, and that apartment building behind there is still standing. It's owned by the same people who are proposing to develop this building, or these 2 buildings. So as you can see in the site plan, the property line, instead of going like this, it's now going like this. with a parking lot in between, although contained on one pit, but still we're treating this as one lot. And the two buildings, one there, one there. So looking at the municipal plan, came up a little weird. 4.3.1, promote the development of housing in a variety of forms for a variety of incomes. And then it specifically talks about the R2 residential mixed zone. And it talks about a mixture of low and medium density residential uses to diversify its housing stock. So this is a medium density residential use. It's exactly the kind of use that belongs in the R2 zone. And then this other municipal plan policy that's relevant is to preserve and enhance the character, integrity, and sustainability of existing and future residential areas. And specifically, there's a proposal about encouraging infill residential development. And this is infill residential development. It's a vacant lot in the middle of a neighborhood. So the municipal plan is pretty clear in that this type of development should be supported by terms and conditions. That's the requirement in the R2 zone. And it does, this proposal sort of give some direction of what to consider. Compatibility in height and scale of adjacent buildings in the area, continuity with nearby streetscapes and lot patterns, appropriate landscaping, preservation of existing vegetation where possible, and capacity of municipal services. And this is a service lot. It had services before. So again, you're getting development without having to extend services, which is always a good for the town's fiscal management. And in terms of communications, we spoke with the CAO and there was support from him. Generally, always happy to see more rental residential development. We did get one phone call. It wasn't really about this development. There was some more general concern about social housing in St. George and some of the issues that this person felt that caused. But that's really not a planning issue. I don't know what the intended end user for these dwellings are, but we're looking at the land use, not the people who will be inhabiting it. So as we've seen from most of our municipalities, when we're looking at residential development, rental units are particularly badly needed. We've done a whole study on this. And St. George is very much in this category. They've got a lot of great employment, but need rental places for people to live. When we look at terms and conditions, we look at protecting properties within the zone or abutting zones, or the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. And the zoning bylaw is actually pretty comprehensive in dealing with this development already. It has standards for multiple unit dwellings, standards for landscaping, garbage storage, and parking lots if they're over 6 cars, which this one would be. So when looking for conditions, as we get to the recommendation here, I'll go through them. But when looking at conditions, it was really just about reinforcing the existing provisions in the zoning bylaw about those areas, and those deal with the things that the municipal plan tells you that we should be having terms and conditions for. So we do, just because obviously you can't have buildings running through the middle of property lines. So they do need to be reconfigured, subdivided as they appear on the site plan, and they would need to do that before they got a building permit. Notwithstanding any variance, because as I said, there were a couple of small development officer variances that would need to happen for this to go forward. All development and activities shall comply with the zoning bylaw, and specifically there's a section on parking lot requirements, garbage storage, and the standards for multiple unit dwellings. And then kind of our standard terms and condition, all other provincial and town bylaws, provincial acts need to be followed. I don't believe RAWA would apply in this case, but that's kind of a standard rider. And I'll just remind PRAC that with terms and conditions, and I'm sorry I came in a little bit late, was having Zoom problems, so maybe Vivian already went over this for her proposal. This isn't a case where PRAC can approve or deny, like in a variance. This is really just about setting terms and conditions. So PRAC can either proceed with staff's conditions as recommended. You could take conditions away, although I certainly don't recommend that, or you could add conditions. And the only way to, I guess, deny is to add conditions that simply can't be met, but they would have to be reasonable conditions that could not be met. So that's it for this presentation.
Thank you, Xander. Alex, do we have the applicant online, and do they wish to speak?
So if the applicant wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function or type into chat that you wish to speak, and I'll give you a moment. Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing the applicant wishing to speak at this time, so I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Alex, do we have any others online that wish to speak either in favor or opposition to this application?
So again, if you, Faith Avery wishes to speak to this application, so I'm going to promote her to a speaking role.
Thank you, Alexander.
Go ahead, Faith.
As some of you know, I'm the mayor here in St. George. I think that this is a great idea. We definitely need housing in St. George. We need rentals. We have jobs. We don't have anywhere for people to stay. My concern is this lot, I've looked at it now for 50 some years. Is it big enough to support 2 apartment buildings?
It can meet all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. There's one very small, it's a side yard setback that needs to be varied by less than a meter, but it can meet all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. They can have all the parking spots, 1 parking spot per person per unit. And I believe the services are there as well.
Yes.
I haven't heard otherwise from Jason.
No.
So
I believe the services are still there. They are for where the Rubin house used to be for sure. The other house, I'm not 100%. So this is going to be going off onto School Street instead of Carlton?
I think the main address will be on, and the parking will come off of School Street.
Okay, so off of the existing parking area they have.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Well, I think it's a great thing for St. George if it's done correctly, and it's definitely needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are there any others, Alex, that wish to speak?
Mr. Chair, there is Elizabeth Eldridge that's wishing to speak. So I'm promoting her to a speaking role now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm on the corner of Carlton and School Street, so this will be my new view if this building goes up. Just curious about 2 questions. One being in thinking of the impact that it will have on property values for owners in the area. Is there any information available about is this a low-income housing project or kind of mid-range? I'm just curious as to whether any of that information would be available, and also when construction would begin, the impact especially for individuals working from home during the pandemic. Curious about just noise and things like that, and when the plan would be for the project to be finished.
Okay, the first question has already been answered. We don't deal with the people that may or may not rent it. I'll leave the second question to Xander.
From my understanding, the applicant does want to start as soon as possible. And I'm assuming they want to get it done in this construction season that's coming up, and the ground is just about thawed, so it is time to start. I believe they will continue to manage the property after, so I'm sure they want to maintain good relationships with their neighbors. They already own 1 apartment building there, so Generally in these situations, like there's town noise bylaws, but they're more for noise at night and extremely excessive volumes, and usually construction doesn't get there. But I just encourage both sides, neighbors and the proponents to discuss what's the best way for a project to proceed, for the construction to proceed while causing as little inconvenience as possible. So certainly encourage the developer to do that, and that's, yeah, it's not something we can really put conditions on, but it's certainly a very valid concern.
Thanks, Senator. Any others, Alex?
Pardon me. Alina wishes to speak.
Yeah.
I'm going to promote her speaking role.
Okay.
Hey, I was wondering if there's any chance you can share, you had earlier on the screen, like a previous plan on how the building will be positioned and where the parking lot is gonna be. I really have big concerns about this. I will be very affected. I am not happy, and I appreciate, we understand that we need the spaces we need the renting. I'm not happy, and I'm not against. I just want to see those plans again, if you don't mind. I want to see the entry you showed earlier on the screen.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'm happy to do that, but it's your call.
Well, are the plans online?
They are online in the report. They're part of the report.
Oh, okay, if it's online and available, then we've already covered that.
I can say that in terms of parking, the zoning bylaw does have pretty strict requirements for parking lots and how they're laid out, and in this case, how far they have to be from residential neighbors nearby, and this does meet those requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's one more, a request from Faith Avery to speak again, although she has spoken already to this file.
No, I've turned down the last request, so in fairness, we'll move on.
There was also a comment from Allison Buchanan that said same building owners, same tenants, I'm assuming. So I don't think that's a asking to speak. So I don't see anybody else wishing to speak at this time. So if there's anybody else, just wait a moment. Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Alex. So we'll open it up for comments or questions or motions of the committee members to staff.
Well, if there's no questions, I'll move that we accept the staff recommendation and for apartment units on School Street, and subject to the terms and conditions specified.
Okay. I guess moved by Gerald and seconded by Raymond. So are we ready? Excuse me. Are we ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Nothing opposed. Looks like it's unanimous. This application is approved. So we will now move to Alex. Is item 5 the one that was withdrawn?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is an application for temporary use authorization in the village of Harvey, and it's been withdrawn.
Okay. So everybody's noted that item 5 has been withdrawn. Excuse me. We'll now move to item number 6 is a variance application. Item number 21-03-07, Logan Denny. And just before we get started, do you have any idea, Alex, of how many people may want to speak on this, or?
There was 4 letters related to the file, so I'm going to assume there at least be 4 people who wish to speak to the
Okay,
file.
so just before we get started, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. First of all, thank you for those that are coming and participating and wish to speak. We would ask that we're going to set a time limit of 3 minutes for your speaking term. Please try and summarize if you're the same people that have submitted the letters to us. Please just try and summarize what your letter is and keep it within the 3 minutes. We would ask you to keep on point with the subject matter. Some of the submissions that we received have some comments in them that are not really relevant to our authority here. Please keep your comments respectful. Any kind of personal attacks or innuendos about favoritism or anything else will be rolled out of order and you'll be muted. We want everybody to have a fair say here, so please, as I said, stay on point. Keep within your 3 minutes. Just a couple of other items. There are some environmental laws mentioned in the submissions and something about dog noise. We have no authority. This committee has no authority to rule on any environmental laws or dog noise or anything else, just simply the land use in this. So with that, we will proceed, and Alex, I believe it's your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to pull up the presentation right now. All right, so this is a variance application from Mr. Logan Binney at 110 Murphy Road in the St. David Parish. So this is an application for 2 variances related to the standards for home-based businesses. The first request is to allow the Class 2 home-based business on a lot less than required by Section 315(3)(b), what is 8,000 square meters, and what is proposed is 7,378 square meters. 2, to allow a Class 2 home-based business size in excess of 30% of the gross floor area of the dwelling unit, as is required by Section 315(3)(d), from 33.4 square meters to 107.7 square meters. So the property in question is zoned rural in the St. David Rural Plan. Welding shop is permitted as a Class 2 home-based business. 2018, the applicants received a permit for the building in question, so it's a Kwanzaa structure. The permit was for a structure as an accessory use. It was not for commercial purposes, and this was indicated to the applicant at the time. The reason was that the property falls in a watershed protected area designation order. So it's in proximity to Moores Mills Lake and the well field that town of St. Stephen uses. However, they received an exemption from the Department of Environment with conditions on February 14th, 2020. That's when the applicant basically decided that they could proceed with a welding home-based business. However, early in 2021 this year, we received complaints from neighbors about noises and hours and sites. And we reviewed the matter and realized that he was not in conformity with the rules regarding home-based business. So the owner was informed that they had an option to apply for a permit because they added a sea container as well that was not in their original application from 2018. And that they would need a variance for some of the standards related to the welding shop. We sent a notice to the meeting to neighbors within 200 meters of the property as is required. We did receive a lot of correspondence, well, 4 letters, but lots of points were raised in those letters. Summary here is that there's concerns about the planner's interpretation and enforcement of the rural plan. That the rural plan would be disrespected with these variances, and that this should actually be a rezoning to industrial. There's concerns about the hours, noise, and the operation affecting nearby residents' quality of life. There's concern that it could lead to decreased property values or has. There's concerns that the conditions proposed are unenforceable. There's concerns over the safety due to large trucks making deliveries. There's a point raised whether or not it's a economically viable or desirable land use. There's concern about the lighting at nighttime. So the property in question here is actually 2 PIDs, and I was unable to select 2. That's not the way the Service New Brunswick map works, but this sliver PID 15051345 also belongs to the applicant. And the way the regulation works in St. David is that one or more parcels together owned by the same owner count together as a lot for the purposes of the regulation. So when we're counting the total lot area of 7,300 plus square meters, that includes this parcel that was purchased by the applicant several years ago. So this is the person's home. The structure is, I believe, 1,200 square feet, give or take. And the Kwanzaa structure is there right beside the dwelling. Here's a close-up picture of the Kwanzaa structure. And there is that, I'll draw your attention to the light that's on top of the delivery door there, which has been a cause of concern from some of the correspondence we received. This is an interior photo of the Kwanzaa structure. I toured the site with the applicant to review the interior of it because I wanted to determine if there was potential for sound buffering, and the structure is insulated, which would have a sound buffering effect. This is the sea container that was added. This is a aerial photo that I took today of the site. And then I took another one across the road. And this is one of the neighbors that is in the closest proximity to the site. So there, you can see me standing in the bottom right corner with the drone controller. So I'm standing in front of the Kwanzaa structure in that location. So there gives you a kind of a context for the site. All right, so the St. David Rural Plan. This is the rural plan here. The overarching objective is to balance economic and social considerations to avoid land use conflicts that cause negative social or economic consequences. So it's looking at both issues, the potential to have a business, but also the potential for that business to cause impacts. The point as well is to ensure that development is compatible with St. David's character and protects quality of life. So with regard to home-based businesses, there's a policy. It is a policy to permit home-based businesses where they are intrinsic to the rural area, provide or supplement income, diversify the local economic base, and do not conflict with the existing rural character of the area. Rural types of economic opportunity are encouraged, so long as it has reduced social or aesthetic impacts. Home-based businesses are defined as secondary use conducted within a dwelling unit or an accessory building or structure on the same lot for gain or support and is compatible with a domestic household. So Class 2 home-based businesses are not considered commercial or industrial uses under the plan. In the rural zone, a welding shop is permitted as a permitted use for a home-based business. The rural plan considers it compatible with the rural character of St. David planning area. even where it's adjacent and secondary to a dwelling unit. So in regards to the plan, this is considered a compatible use. However, for it to be compatible, the plan establishes standards and limits for these uses, keeps them contained. Two standards are the subject of this variance application, and they're found in section 315, 3B and D. So section 315B intent is to ensure that the location is not in a too densely populated area. So 315 is about class 2 home-based businesses. Sorry, 315.3 is about class 2 home-based businesses. Class 2 as opposed to class 1 means there's a potential for higher impacts. So a welding shop certainly has a potential for higher impacts when it's conducted in an area where there's dwelling units. So it needs to be relatively sparse for it to have a lower chance of causing an impact. The numerical difference between 8,000 and 7,378 square meters can be considered minor when you look at the overall area, and that there's only 2 dwelling units within a 150-meter distance. The general proximity also includes vacant lands, blueberry fields, and timberland, according to Service New Brunswick. That said, the 2 dwelling units and the impacts that this could have on them needs to be taken into consideration. So with the first the second variance request related to the gross floor area of the home-based business, the floor area is not to exceed the lesser of 30% of the gross floor area of the dwelling unit, or 120 square meters. So when you look at this, the intent of our regulation in this case is to ensure that the home-based business remains a secondary use, that does not become the primary main use of the land and become a true commercial or industrial property with multiple employees and nobody living there to look after the aesthetic and other noxious potential impacts. When you have somebody living on site, that they have a natural inclination to take care of the property because they're living there too. So, well, Mr. Binney's shop is nearly as large as his existing home. It's smaller, but nearly as large. If his home were enlarged, and that's allowed, the shop size would be allowed because you can go up to 120 square meters. So if 120 square meters is a permitted size for a class 2 home-based business, it can be considered within the general intent to allow a variance up to or close to that size. So he's looking to go to 107.7 square meters. So at the same time as talking about varying these standards, you have to keep in mind that the standards exist to protect the neighbors. Given the welding shop's location, it's quite close to the street and therefore close to the house that's across the street, also close to the street. There needs to be consideration of the impacts to neighbors, because certainly that's come up. So if this variance requests were granted by PRAC, staff's recommendation is that should it be accompanied by rigorous and additional terms and conditions as those found within the regulation. And as we've spoken about, variances can be applied in situations where it's reasonable and desirable for the development of land and within general intent of the regulation. They're also useful to accommodate reasonable development where the regulation does not adequately take in consideration unique features or circumstances of any given property. So on these bases, staff recommend to the PRAC that they approve the 2 variances requested for 110 Murphy Road as it's reasonable, desirable for this parcel of land and in keeping with the general intent of the St. David Planning Area Rural Plan Regulation, subject to the following terms and conditions that: 1, the home-based business not take any deliveries past 10 p.m. or before 7 a.m. 2, that the doors of the welding shop be closed fully during all operations other than deliveries. 3, that a loading area be established wholly within the property lines in accordance with section 39A of the rural plan, that no delivery vehicles shall be parked in any portion of the public right-of-way. 4, that an opaque fence or vegetative screening medium of between 1.5 and 2 meters tall be established between any outdoor storage, including the sea container, and the public right-of-way, subject to section 316A of the regulation, and have this installed or in a state that is effective screening by September 2022. 5, that any exterior lighting be shielded and directed downward so as to limit light pollution and not preclude nearby residents from enjoying the view of the night sky. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Is the applicant online and do you wish to speak?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is online and I'm going to promote him to a speaking role right now.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead, Mr. Rennie.
Thank you for holding this meeting. I appreciate it. I have no problem. I know I only have 3 minutes here, so I have no problem agreeing to the terms of deliveries between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. I work a full-time job from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. in town as it is, so I'm not going to be working all hours of the night. I mean, and nobody does deliveries after, you know, probably 8 or 9 anyway. I don't know of anybody that would do deliveries after that time. As far as the vegetative screening or a fence around the sea can, I totally agree with that. I was going to paint it anyway. It's up on blocks at the present time, and I actually just got my approval. I'm not sure if May sent the permit application into you yet, Alex, but I'll get it to you probably tomorrow if you haven't received it in email yet. So it's up on blocks right now, so it was obviously set there temporarily. I'm going to be applying for another permit so that I can fill farther back in the yard so that I can move the sea can farther away from the road. And I am planning, once I have the location set, I'm going to put up a vegetative screening and I'm going to paint it because I don't want it in my front yard either. So I agree with that. That's perfectly fine. As far as the light goes, my immediate neighbor also has a dusted on light, and we all are well aware that there is quite a bit of crime in Charlotte County now. That light is to deter thieves. I also put the run to thieves that were in my adjacent neighbor's yard several years ago when they were doing the renovations to their house. I was being a diligent neighbor, and I thought the light was a good addition to the neighborhood because it not only protects my property, but it also deters thieves from my adjacent neighbors' properties as well. And as far as the noise and keeping the doors closed during operations, that's perfectly fine. 95% of the welding I do uses shielding gas, so you can't have wind blowing away your shielding gas. It defeats the purpose of the gas, so that's fine. I realized I did have my doors open fairly often last summer, but I mean, there's other garages. There's 7 other businesses within a few kilometers of my house that also operate with their doors open during summer months because it's very hot. If anybody would have came to me and asked me to close my doors if it was excessively loud, I would have certainly done so. So I really don't have anything other to say about that. I have no problem with keeping my doors closed. And as far as the deliveries go, I have receipts to prove. In the last 3.5 months, I've only had 4 deliveries and 4 civilian vehicles that are 4 separate civilian vehicles come to my yard.
Sorry, Logan, I just have muted you. You're at 3 minutes now, so I'm turning it back to the chair.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Are there any other speakers that wish to speak in favor of this application?
So if you are wishing to speak in favor of the application, you can do so by raising your hand or typing into the chat that you wish to speak in favor. We'll go to speaking in opposition after. So I'm just going to give those who want to speak in favor, if there is any, a chance to speak. appears that there is nobody who's prepared to speak in favor. So, Mr. Chair, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Alex. We'll now go to those persons that wish to, if there are any, speak in opposition. Keep in mind, you're limited to 3 minutes, so.
So if anybody wishes to speak in opposition, you can use your raise hand function or type into chat, and I will wait here a moment for that. All right, Mr. Chair, I'll start with Kimberly Henry. So Kimberly, just make sure you're unmuted.
Sure. Hi, I'm the neighbor that lives directly across the road from Mr. Benny. And I don't even know where to start. 3 minutes is very short. But as Alex has presented, we all know that, you know, the lot size is too small, the shop's too big, the outside's not screened. The neighborhood's kind of disarray. There's some negative impact on that. And I think the planning committee is also to protect our neighbors, and we talked about that, and having to wait until 10 o'clock for a shop to close when I'm a nurse at the hospital, and I get up at like 4:30, 20 to 5 in the morning, and have to be to work for 7, and then come home and have to wait until 10 o'clock for that to shut down, and then, you know, get your adrenaline down and fall asleep and get back up. That's quite late for that in my eyes. My husband actually has gone over and spoken to Logan about the tapping from the welding shop that he was doing over there. I think you folks received my letter and my pictures to prove that it's not just a little welding shop, it's a fabrication shop. And according to the act, fabricating is part of an industrial use, and industrial use used to be in a rezoned area, and there's a lot of truck traffic and people going into Logan's. I kind of disagree with some of his statements. Protecting our neighbors, because of these rules and regulations, I don't understand how you get variances, but I guess people get variances because those were put in place to protect us. So I didn't understand why, if it's too large, too small, like what are we kind of doing here? When I read your objectives to the St. David Parish Planning Area and Rural Plan Regulations, of course, Part B, I hear words like protect, serve, quality of life, negative social consequences, best interests. And I think a lot of those also refer to the neighborhood here and what we're going through and how we're trying to do the best we can. I just think I know Logan is a
20
welder,
seconds.
fabricator, and I just think that if he wants one of those shops, he should have a shop in a proper place. He just doesn't have the proper size lot here. He should have it in a proper size lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Next speaker.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to promote Karen Ouellette to speaking role. Just make sure you're unmuted, Karen.
Hi, thank you very much. I did send in a written submission, and I'd just like to add a couple of points or highlight a couple of points to that written submission. I just want to, you know, it just seems kind of crazy to me that Mr. Binney is in violation of 2 bylaws already. The property size is 10% smaller than it needs to be, and the building is about 200% larger than the bylaws say that it should be at 30% of his floor plan, according to the numbers that were provided on Mr. Henderson's summary. So, I mean, in Mr. Henderson's summary, he states that those amounts are minimal, and I'd kind of argue that. And then on top of that, he's also placed a sea container on the property without a permit. So, you know, it seems kind of important to me to note that Mr. Binney has gone forward with all of these things first, without any, you know, without the proper permits, without any, you know, he's gone forward. The initial application for the permit was only made in 2018 as an enforcement action. And again, now all of these variances are a result of an enforcement action because neighbors complain. These actions have really had a negative impact on more than just the 2 dwelling units that Mr. Henderson considers. I'm just over 200 meters away, and I would be the 4th quote unquote dwelling unit, that is being considered. There's a real disruption to this community. I'd also argue that the term rigorous for standards, they're actually quite soft and not rigorous. We're a really small rural area, 1.69 kilometer road with 21 homes, 21 kids, and all the character that you can ask for that comes along in a rural community. And, suddenly we have a commercial operation right smack dab in the middle of it. So I really, really urge the committee, the PRAC committee, to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elect. Next speaker, Alex.
I'm going to promote Leonard Woodside to speaking. Leonard, just make sure you're unmuted. Leonard, we're unable to hear you. If you wish to speak,
Hello.
you can type. Oh, hi, there you are.
Okay, I finally get on. I am the property owner on the other side. The supposed lumber field there to his left. My son plans to go back and build there, but I'm not too sure he's gonna want to build there with what I'm used to, because I've been all over the province, all over Eastern Canada, and anytime I've seen a welding shop, it's promoted a junkyard. There is right beside his lot a drainage thing, because that was all wetland. It drains down into the lower fields, which is airship property, which I'm part of. So I'm not pleased to see a larger welding shop there other than his own recreational one. That's my thought. Plus, I grew up in that area. Most of the people who live in that area are friends or relatives. I'm just not sure that that is an area for a welding shop.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
all I
Leonard.
have.
Okay, Alex.
All right.
Any more?
So if anybody wishes to speak at this time, you have to type into chat you wish to speak or raise your hand. Oh, I have a Vito Garfalo who wishes to speak. So Vito, I'm going to promote your speaking role. Just make sure you have unmuted yourself. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So following my written submission, I just want to bring forward one point. So, my family and I moved here from the province of Quebec. We love it here. We love the New Brunswick way of life. We love the way people are kind, the community life that we've never lived in the province of Quebec. We're very happy here in our home. We don't have any intention of moving. Prior to coming here, I was an owner operator of a real estate brokerage, 4 years with Remax and 4 years independent. While I'm not knowledgeable on the real estate laws in the province of New Brunswick. In the province of Quebec, the noise that comes from that property can easily be considered a hidden defect. Again, while I'm not aware of that being factual in New Brunswick, when I think of selling that property, I think it would be extremely morally wrong on our part to not at least advise the person that's going to buy that property of the noise that comes from that property. And I understand, the committee doesn't have time to go sit there and listen to it on an evening. It's a lot louder than we are led to believe. We came here with the intention to not fight with our neighbors, and we love that about here. It's everyone it's live and let live. but there's also limitations to it. And I believe that 10 p.m. It's not acceptable. Mr. Binney has a job, which he stated. We all have jobs for the most part. And when we come to our homes and want to relax and have a barbecue and be outside and excuse me, enjoy a fire on the patio, it's just not enjoyable. It's never ending noise. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Garofalo.
Mr. Chair, that may be it for people who wish to speak in opposition. The applicant is still online though, so.
Okay, we will, Mr. Benny, would you like to respond to any of the comments?
Yes, I would actually. As far as the noise complaints goes, my building is insulated with 6-inch rock wool, which is actually what is used for soundproofing. And my doors, I special ordered from Finland. I paid over $10,000 for those doors, for the reason being that they are so sealed and soundproof. I'm the only person in Eastern North America who has these doors. They came a long way for this purpose. I have 3 children that I'm working very hard to support, 2 of which are autistic. As anybody that knows anything about autism, they know that they are very sensitive to sound. Both of their bedrooms are directly across, they're on the side of the house that is directly adjacent to my shop. I can stand in this room and have the radio cranked just as loud as it will possibly go in my shop, and you can't even hear it from in the building. You can't. I have no problem keeping the doors closed during operation. I don't see how I'm causing as big of an issue as what's being stated. I'm almost always in the shop when I'm working. The only time I come in and out of the shop is with my forklift, and anybody that knows what a forklift is used for, it is specifically for lifting. I pick something up, I bring it in the shop, I set it in the shop, I park it, I shut it off, and then the doors are closed. In my defense, yes, I did have the doors open during construction and things like that last summer, but I was doing work in the garage. So, you know, anyway, that's irrelevant. If anybody would have came to me and asked me personally, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I helped all of my neighbors. I helped Robert and Kim when they were doing the renovations to their home. I carried their building materials in for them. I put the run to thieves while they were not staying there full time. I welded on Bobby and Terry's bush hog and completely rebuilt.
Let's try and stay on point if you could, Mr. Benny.
Well, I'm just saying that I was doing all these things completely free of charge to be a good neighbor. Like I completely rebuilt. I did about $1,000 worth of work to Bobby and Terry's tractor and Jeep.
That, but your time.
Yeah, we're.
So.
Okay, I apologize. And the sea can will be moved farther from the road because I don't want to look at it right out in front of my front yard.
Okay. Mr. Chair, back to you, the committee.
Okay, then the thank you. The public participation is now over. So it's I'll pass it to the committee members for questions of staff.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It looks like to me the horse is out of the barn. This building has already been erected. Everything's in position. How did that happen?
That's irrelevant.
It is?
That's out of order. We're here to rule on these variances right now. The fact that it's already there is an enforcement issue that we don't deal with. I know we would like to, but we don't.
No,
So,
I just.
okay, so
no problem.
Actually, I'll just speak for Alex here, but it actually is part of enforcement to offer this variance to them. You know, enforcement is not always bang, bang, bang. So that's part of the process, I believe. So any other comments or questions? This is a fairly, how should I say it? It demands some discussion, I believe.
I have a question.
Your last statement.
I'm saying that it's a fairly serious contentious issue or whatever, so it does demand, I think, some discussion. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, I just wondered, on the area for the building, does that count in the C container? C container would be considered part of the workshop, but not.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
So the C container is part of the outdoor storage. It's not where the shop is being conducted. So it's considered just part of the outdoor storage, which needs to be screened, and you can do up to 250 square meters of that.
I guess I have a quick question. May not be able to answer it, but can you give us your rationale for setting the time at 10 o'clock as opposed to, say, 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 3 in the morning, whatever? What's the rationale for that time period?
So the recommendation for 10 p.m. Is response to the concerns that neighbors had around sleeping. So that's when I was looking at what the potential real impacts and potential hardship on neighbors would be if they're not able to sleep, that is affecting their quality of life, period. So where I was looking at the complaints and some of the images and videos that were sent to me, there was quite a lot. A lot of the time it was when there was when the doors were open or there's deliveries or trucks that seemed to coincide with one another, and they were past 10 p.m. So the committee can set something more restrictive or its own conditions or remove conditions, as the previous planner indicated with the other file. So that's the case here. So if the committee feels that these conditions aren't sufficient or rigorous enough, they can go further or go lesser or reject the application. So it's really up to the committee to decide if those are the most appropriate given the regulation, what it calls for.
Okay. One other quick question. On the size lot, the difference between 8,000 and 7,378 is more like one of the persons in opposition says 10%, but that's not 10%. So it's like, what is it, 600 meters, 622? I guess it would be 8% maybe. Can you just look at that and verify for that, for us, what the percentage is? Nine? Okay. All right, no, that's close enough. I was looking at it close there. I thought it was a bit overstated.
Mr. Chair, I calculated 7.77%.
Okay. All right, well, that's close enough. They stated 8%, so fair enough.
And if I could, I also, the point about minor is not so much about the numerical piece in this case, but about regarding the general intent. So if you had a situation where you had houses on all sides that close, then you're having a far more densely populated area. But that was more the point about the comment regarding minor, because I think that was raised before. So
okay, thank you. Any other comments, Jill or Vance?
A question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Alex, how enforceable is this closed door policy that you're talking about here? Because I'm thinking this place is going to fill up full of smoke and gas, and it's going to be hotter than Hades in there in the summertime, et cetera, et cetera. So is this, if, who's gonna drive by there and notice the doors are open and what do they do when they do that?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
So the conditions related to the doors being closed, they'd have to be enforced retroactively. We're not going to have staff members out there at 8 p.m. watching to make sure that it's closed. However, given that there has been concerns with this, that neighbors are being vigilant and they're contacting our office regularly, I have no doubt that if there was a violation of these conditions, we would hear from them, which we could follow up with. And when we receive an enforcement complaint, it causes us to basically open a mini investigation. And it's the same with noise conditions. If you ever set a condition on a property related to noise, excessive noise is past time of night, there's no way to basically enforce that through, say, a device that gathers and measures noises. Through law, it's a number of beyond like reasonable doubt. If we have sworn affidavits and so on, and videos and so on that demonstrate that's one way to do it. We're going to be looking at this if this is to be approved and making sure there is compliance, because this is important that people have a quality of life, and if these conditions help that be met, then we got to do that for the sake of the regulation.
What does enforcement entail in this particular, if you're getting these complaints and these affidavits, et cetera, to what level of enforcement is available to you once this is approved?
So what you can do is several things. The land use would be approved subject to these conditions, meaning that the business cannot operate in violation of these conditions. So there's two methods in the act. So there could be to cease the land use, to remove the offending structure, if the case may be, or fines. So in the case where you have non-compliance, there could be a situation where you are fined, and this is not something which the Southwestern Brunswick Service Commission does. Of course, this is done through the courts. So the way we approach matters is to gather the evidence and proceed with communications if we feel that there is a likely violation, and we start communication. If there is no compliance after that point, they receive an order to comply under the Community Planning Act. And in that case, they have to cease the land use that's causing the offense. Otherwise, they're now subject to fines or removal from a judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex and Vance. I have a quick follow-up question to that, Alex, in sharing the first part of Vance's question. Have there been any provisions taken into consideration for ventilation systems in this building that would allow for having the doors closed all the time? Because that is an issue. I've not seen many welding shops with the doors closed all the time, unless they've got some kind of a ventilation system or whatever that would be installed to a certain standard to vent those gases and so on.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest you recall the applicant to answer that question, but I did note there is a fan at the top of the ceiling in one of the photographs I took, so I could show that, or you could recall the applicant to speak to it, your choice.
I think we'd like to have Mr. Benny address that.
Okay, just a second.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a ventilation fan located on the backside of the building. It's a high output fan, so it has a significant amount of airflow. So I may have to add a powered louver on the front so that I can get a little extra draw. But as far as keeping the doors closed during operation to clear smoke, that's not a problem. The biggest modification that I may have to do is just add a powered louver that opens when I turn on the fan, just to draw fresh air in as the smoke and fumes are exhausted out the back.
Okay, so you do agree though that there is some ventilation required in order for you to keep those doors closed?
Oh, absolutely. It would be black as anything in minutes with welding without ventilation. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be definitely, it would, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Brian.
we're talking about ventilation. It's a black. And we're talking about pollution also,
No, just exhausting the fumes.
but I know that's going outside the building.
Yeah, but that's not what we're after. What we're asking is that he's made the statement that he can keep the doors closed at all times with no problem. Vance has raised the question that once it fills full of fumes and gets hot, you know, how can you keep the doors closed? So it's not really to do with pollution, it's whether the building can be exhausted safely in order to keep those doors closed. You know, to prevent from toxic gases and so on. Pollution may be an issue, but it's a different issue than this.
Pollution is of our jurisdiction.
Yes.
Okay, that's the only thing I want to find out, because pumping the air out, obviously, is going to be
Yeah.
out of our jurisdiction.
Well, that's up to the commission to make that,
Yeah.
that recommendation to the building inspector.
Okay.
I
I just want to make it clear that it's
No, it's a good point.
in and out.
It's a good point, for sure, but it would be up to the building inspector when you issue a permit for that commercial, industrial type building, whatever it is determined to be, to make sure that it has proper ventilation.
Filters or whatever.
Yeah, for health reasons and for.
That's all I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, so. Anyone else wish to comment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could, just
Sure.
a quick question to Alex. I know I asked this question on several files, and I just need to kind of say it out loud. I wonder what makes this desirable for this parcel of land when, by your own admission, there seems to be quite a bit of opposition from the neighbors. That I'm just wondering what makes it desirable under those conditions.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, Alex.
So it is a very good question, because it is I think it's a matter of perspective for sure. So if you're looking at the rural plan and the overall objectives, you have both typical rural types of economic development and opportunity to be encouraged. So the ability for someone to do a home-based business to diversify their income is basically one of the policies of the plan. However, you have to mitigate that against balancing against the social impact on the neighbors. So I can appreciate the point that you've raised, and I think you as the committee basically need to weigh these things and decide, because you could take this and look at it in different ways, I would think, for sure.
And one more, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, John.
The time frame of September 2022 to complete this screening, that's quite a bit of time. Is there what led you to that date? Was it just maybe the maturation of natural barriers, or what gave that long of a time frame for that?
If I could, that's exactly it. So the allowance to grow like a cedar hedge, it wouldn't be effective screening in the first year. And basically we'd want to see something well established by year 2. In fact, if it was in year 1, we want to follow up. So it's a good check in time to come back 2 years later, but it could be something that's modified. So you could have something, you could be more specific. You could say you could also make it required that a fence be installed, and that you could give them, say, a couple months to do it, for them to be allowed to do this. That would speed up the process, but I was just trying to think about different, allow for a little bit of buffer, but also would be a good time to do a check-in and to see how this file's doing. So
I guess I would hate to see a natural barrier not even started until the summer of 2022, and that would still make it kind of within the time limit. I don't know. I think we should put yeah. Those are just my thoughts. Sorry. I'm done.
Thank you, Jill. That was certainly a valid point to raise. I had looked at that date myself and wondered about it.
One final comment, if I may.
Yes.
Go
ahead. Yes.
I'm looking at the map of the property, and although we're looking at a variance here because of the size of the lot, that's a bit deceiving because it's almost 2 acres in the lot, and the garage is of course parked right next to the house, which is right next to the road. So there's a fair bit of property in behind that's being unused, which I guess to me is the place to put a welding shop, whether it's a home-based business or it's just your own personal shop. Had that building been placed in the rear somewhere, we may not be having so much of a discussion here tonight over this. And the pictures of the shop are, it's very clear this is a well advanced building. This is from the get-go. I don't believe this was any intended to be anything but a home-based business. This wasn't a garage that turned into a hobby shop that turned into a business, became popular sort of thing. I guess I just wanted to make those comments because that's the point of view that I'm taking on this. And these sorts of things are, from my perspective, are not to be taken lightly as you take those steps to get to where we are, and then basically ask for forgiveness instead of permission. To that point, is is not entirely the case here, of course, but it's I believe it was the intent from the beginning, and we're at the point that it required a couple of minor variances, so you might as well give them to me. And I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the whole process. I guess is the point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think that's, I was driving at my first statement. Yeah. I agree with you on that. That's what I said in my first statement, was worded a little differently, but I don't know where to stop on this. I agree. with you.
Well, I don't disagree with either one of you, but our job is to approve, amend, or reject the variances. It's not to question the how we got there, I guess. As much as we may want to. But they're all valid points. They just don't belong in the process from the advice that I've received from Alex and from the solicitor over the years.
Mr. Chair, where I've already indicated conflict of interest, can I speak at all?
No, not if you declare it conflict.
Okay, it's good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question. What's the distance from the front of the Kwanzaa hut to the road? Yeah, I can answer that.
I think he's looking at this.
I'm just looking at the DTI setback certificate that was received for the CCAN, which is a little bit further set back yet. And here it's noted as being 17. Oh, sorry, it's located as being 10 meters from the road. But actually here, let me just double check. I apologize. It's gonna take me a minute.
Looks a bit closer than that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And
He said.
And it's from the center of the road, is what you gotta go by.
In the center of the room.
It's 33.
33 feet, but yeah,
That's
That's the 10 meters.
Yeah, it says 17 and a half from the center line.
Yeah.
And then the required distance is 7.5 meters from the highway right-of-way boundary. So they have 10 meters here shown as the location of the building. So this is what DTI shows, but I could show you that the CCAN is several meters setback from the, just a second here. I do believe that this received a variance from DTI related to the setback of the structure back in 2018. Oh, unfortunately, I don't have a photo that shows this, but I believe it's 1.5 meters or 2 meters thereabouts further back than the front wall of the Quonset.
So he's 8 meters still away from the set line.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Logan had said that about 8 o'clock, he doesn't have any more trucks come in. So why couldn't that variance be changed to 8 to 7?
Well, it's up to you will propose that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
If you want to.
yeah.
You can accept it the way it is, you can reject it the way it is, or you can change it.
Yeah.
Or add a condition if you want to see the application go forward. Is that correct, Alex?
That's correct.
So I have to make a motion that that time be changed. So that's you.
I don't know if that's the right order.
you have to say the whole thing, I think.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
I'd like to see, like Jill had said, a fence, but if they want a natural barrier, plant in front of the fence, and then with the intent to take the fence down later on, if.
Yeah.
Because that would cover both areas.
Okay.
And you still have to go back to check the trees in 2 years' time to make sure that they do cover it.
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Alex.
sorry, I was just wondering if it would be helpful to have the proposed conditions on the screen.
Yes.
Okay.
It would also add to the soundproofing.
Yeah, that would help for the side.
I'd like to see something when they're go ventilation too, but I can't make it.
I've already got that mark here.
I can't make a motion.
No.
He works in the welding shop, so he's the ventilation.
Yeah.
He has to do that, that's standard.
Yeah. But it still should be in there as a term and condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we offline?
So there's 5 conditions there. Number 1, not take any deliveries past 10 o'clock. This is the one you want.
Yeah, that's it. I would say past 8.
All right, so item number 1 is proposed that that time be changed on the PM side of it from 10 o'clock till 8 o'clock PM. Item 2 is fine. Item 3 is okay. On item number 4, Raymond has made a friendly amendment to have a temporary opaque fence put up in a shorter time period to do until the vegetation grows in. And then if they want to take the temporary fence down on 22nd of September 22, provided the vegetation was in an opaque condition. Number 5, we will stick with number 5 now. Mr. Binney did have some concerns about the lighting, but he did not necessarily say that he was willing to change that light to a light that is directed downward. So that would stay.
I'd like that in a
And Dennis,
additional term and condition, that ventilation be installed sufficient to keep the doors closed at all times.
Yeah. So that would be 6.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Brian.
can we add to that statement? I know we're talking about ventilation side, but I'm also considering where the pollution is going to go outside, how it's going to affect the
It
neighbors.
doesn't matter, if the doors are open, you still have the same thing. So it's a moot point.
That's not what we're here for.
There's nothing you can do about that. If he leaves the doors open, the pollution's still gonna come out the door. So all you're doing is redirecting it from doors open to
the back of the
up to the
Up to the environment to enforce.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Anyway,
But it's not that I don't want to, there's just no way.
no, I know, I'm just thinking out loud, I'm just being honest. but
Yeah, no,
It's under pressure rather than just floating up to the ceiling, now you're blowing. So that's all I'm saying, it's different than just stuff floating in the air, you're actually now putting pressure behind it and actually blowing, you could be blowing it towards you or the house, where now it's just goes up maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but by the same token, there are standards on amounts.
Yeah, and we don't get into.
Amounts that are allowed to go into the
Yeah.
air, so it may not be an issue at all.
Or it may be an issue, period.
Well,
That depends, that's on us.
it depends, but it's, we can't
No, I understand.
figure that out here.
I just wanted to get clear, but
Yeah.
not only clear the air inside, but you're doing something on the outside.
Okay. I would like to address that, but I don't know how we can. We don't have standards for that, that's not really.
Can I ask another question? I'm not even sure because we haven't been here before. But my learned colleague on the other side of the screen, and him and I both made the same statement. And we told it wasn't part of it, but my concern is, and I'll say it, and then you can throw it out. How can this get so far? I mean, the man has spent, clearly, he spent a lot of money, $10,000 a door for one thing. I don't know, they have $60,000, $70,000 left, this plus equipment. How can it get this far before it comes to approval?
But again, that's not something I can ask.
No, but I'm just asking in the future,
Well,
where's the stopper on this stuff?
Well, we have been advised by the planner, by Alex, over the years, and by the solicitor, I believe, at one of the meetings that we've had, that enforcement is not our issue. Now, Vance did mention it, but he started the conversation on a different note and kind of swung into it, so I accepted it, but, we're not here to enforce it, we're here to decide on these variances. I respect what you're saying and I appreciate it, and we can all feel that way, but it's, as far as enforcement goes, you're right.
I understand.
You got to this point, however, the Southwest Service Planning Commission is enforcing it by way of bringing it to this committee. Now, if the committee turns it down, then it becomes a separate enforcement issue from this committee. So if that's turned down, then he's in non-compliance, and then it's up to, to the bylaw or the building inspector or whatever to issue orders at that point. But it's not up to us, to do that.
No, I understand that, but it's just how we get here to make these decisions. And when something like that comes up, it helps.
But we're not, well, I'm gonna end it here. We're not making the decision on whether he should be here or whether he shouldn't.
No.
We're making the decision based on the variances that the planners have put before us. So.
So we do have the option to turn down.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be turned down.
That's
It can
simple,
be-
simple answer, that's all I got.
I have another question there,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. I was wondering, Alex, is it possible to update these variances so that we can see them on the screen as per the way that we just got done discussing here?
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yes,
I have no problem doing that. If you would like me to, it's just going to take a minute.
sure. Yeah, I think it would be better if we could see it on the screen.
Method to this.
One's almost gone. Got a big one.
What's that?
Should have got a bigger one. One's almost gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, our job is to make a technical decision based on
What we
the
have in front of us.
application in front of us, and I know that's not, you know.
So we start getting into, they already did it, and let you be all over the place. Everybody's done it. I was, respond to Vance's question there, really is. Have you been able to see that site?
No.
There's no, he only has about 150 feet at the most. off the
We can't,
road.
we have to stop there, we can't.
So it's gonna be here to me? Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't matter, we're in the public right now. No, we're not offline.
Sorry.
And we're not allowed to discuss these things
No,
offline, so.
No,
offense.
fair enough.
The other thing you get, I guess, and I'll say it aloud, but the thing is that people do not understand. Sometimes we don't understand what's going on totally because we haven't been here in some of this time. The thing about it is, the people on the other end of that screen that's listening to us have to understand that we just make approval or non-approval based on what the land requirements are and not on anything else.
That's right.
That's it.
What's in front of us.
But it's misunderstood a lot.
Oh, there's no question about it, and it gets people's emotions raised because everybody has a different opinion and so on, but, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, you know, it's almost be the facts in front of us, and that's the only, because you have to look at what can happen afterwards, whether, you know, whether it's appeal or legal or court or whatever, so the process has to be
according to the practice,
as close as we can get to it, you know.
You can ask questions, but it still has to go back after that to the actual land involvement, not pollution, not visual arrow, anything, just basically the purpose of the land.
What he's applying for.
Yeah. But that's the problem that the public has trouble with.
Oh.
And we have trouble with it.
Yeah.
But I think bringing those subjects up, at least they get clarified to them.
Well, they
what our restrictions are.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have what I think is what the committee discussed. Just one moment. And I put it in the form of a motion if that's where you were going with this. Second. Oh, sorry.
There.
The only thing you might want to do there on ventilation is say subject to the building inspectors approval.
I was gonna say, is that out of our jurisdiction, that portion?
Yeah, well, we can say subject to.
Yeah, because we gotta clarify that, because we don't want to go back and say.
Yeah, exactly, you know, stepping on thing.
That's out of our jurisdiction.
Well,
Could be
no,
subject to-
no, we can say subject to,
Yeah.
you know, to
That should be added in there.
applicable standard or something, you know, down the
Yeah,
line.
some should be added then because.
Codes and conditions.
Alex, if it could just, I'm not making this motion, I'm speaking for the committee on that, on number 6, on the ventilation, if we could add something in there to the effect of, subject to applicable standard, or subject to, building inspector's, approval, recommendation.
I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the recommendations with the 6 variances.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. It's not 6 variances, it's 2 variances, which I can show you the 2 variances being requested,
6 conditions then.
subject to
No
6
problem.
conditions.
6 conditions then, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a question. The recipients on the other side.
It's not, we've got a motion and then,
Okay.
okay.
See it.
So it's been, you can just, let's go through the process here. So it's been moved by Annette and seconded by Raymond that we accept the 2 variances subject to the 6 conditions on the screen. Now, are we ready for the question? Right.
The question is, can they hear or see that motion so they understand what we're voting on? The clients,
Yeah, well, so, yeah.
they can see it? Okay, I didn't know if they were just on hear mode or see.
No, it's
Okay,
all-
as long as they can see it, that's my concern.
It's public, and I think,
Yeah.
I think we're on YouTube, but.
Yeah, okay, that's all I was concerned about, make sure they see what we're voting on.
Okay, so I've called the questions. Are any other questions, comments? Jill or Vance? Can you see the conditions?
Yes.
Vance?
Yep.
Okay, so, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Hey,
Nay.
So we have. How many people we got here? With 5 and 2, was it?
Gerald's not gonna.
5 in favor or no?
I'm at Steve or 5 in favor.
4 in favor, 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Is that right?
That's correct.
Who,
Mr. Chair, if I could, what were the nay votes? It was Jill and Vance is what I got.
yeah.
No, it was Brian and Vance.
Jill is as well.
Brian, Vance,
Yeah,
and
this-
Jill.
Yeah,
Okay, there's 3 nays. Who is in favor?
Sam, Raymond, Annette, and Dennis.
The Sam, are you allowed to vote?
Yes, I have to vote. That's why I have to ask questions.
Okay.
Okay,
So 4 to 3, so the yeas have it. Thank you, everybody, for that. We'll now move on to item 7, subdivision applications. Item 21-03-02, historical landings.
Did we take a 5-minute break? sir?
Yes, just for a sec, Alex. We'd like to take a 5-minute break if we could.
Keep going. No, go ahead. You look like you are.
Free coffee.
No more coffees at this meeting.
We're overtime tonight? We're all live now, so continue.
Okay. Everybody's back now. Thanks for your patience. It's a kind of long evening, but we'll show it here. Item 21-03-022, historical landings subdivision application. And I'm not sure who's going to present that. If it's Alex, Xander, or Vivian.
It's me, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the historical landing subdivision. The request is for the creation of 6 lots accessed by a 20-meter private access. This subdivision was a plan that we did see in December, and PRAC did make a recommendation to the Department of Transportation Infrastructure to recommend the location of a public street. The applicant has since come back and would like to do it as a private access. So this is the plan here with the 6 lots, the 20-meter wide private access. There's a 4-meter pedestrian walkway, as you see, on the front of the lot, and that walkway will extend to the St. Croix corridor with a future development. So it is zoned rural and St. Croix corridor on the Bayside rural plan, and the private access is from Route 127. So you can see the property zoned the rural and the St. Croix corridor, and the 2 pictures here, that is the access going towards St. Andrews, and this is an older photo of the proposed access into the property. So Regulation 8159, the subdivision regulation, requires that blocks and subdivisions are not overly long to provide ease of circulation and convenience. If blocks are larger than the maximum allowed, pedestrian walkways are incorporated to provide access, circulation to schools, libraries. Because this subdivision is a rural area, does not have public amenities, staff asked the developer to consider an easement for a pedestrian walkway, and as I showed, it is on the plan. A water supply assessment was done, and it's known that elevated levels of arsenic are in the area. And staff strongly recommends that water quality advisory note appear on the plans and a restrictive covenant be placed on the deed. And because the lots do meet the minimum lot size, it is the opinion that the lots are suitable for the purpose of the tenant. Staff recommends that the PRAC of the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission approve a private access for the development of land as shown on historical landing subdivision. The final plan of subdivision must be stamped with the private access note, the water quality advisory note for arsenic shown on the plan, and the 30-meter limited development setback being shown on the following statement, and the following statement added to the final plan. Development and tree cutting between the 30-meter setback and the water's edge is limited and controlled by the St. Croix corridor zoning regulation. And the proposed lots are actually not abutting the St. Croix corridor, but the remnant is. So we would like the plan still to come in with that note on it, even though there is no development at the moment proposed for the remnant on the water's edge. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers, Alex? This one? It's getting dark out.
My apologies. I was getting trapped here, not able to get back to the screen. We do have the applicant, and I'm going to promote, actually I'll promote both applicants at the same time, Brock and Hank. If you wish to speak, you're going to have to unmute yourself. You can decide who speaks first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
All right, nice to meet you. Good evening, all you guys. And like I say, yeah, originally we said we're going to go for a public street, and since that time, we're due to the fact we're going to be building townhomes. Now, in the case, we're going to be building single family homes. So instead, we like to go with the private access. Same thing's going to be have a walking trail along the side of the road, a walking trail going down to the beach, so it's all good for the tenants and stuff like that, so forth. So. And yeah, like I say, we're gonna be building some nice single family homes, and hopefully this will be a nice project for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Merchant.
Thank you, guys.
Did you say you had two there, Alex?
Hank Merchant is also online. I'm not sure if Hank wished to speak though, so I'll just assume not, because he's not muted himself, so I'll
Okay.
proceed.
Any others in favor or opposed that wish to speak?
So if anybody's in the audience who wishes to speak to this application, you can raise your hand. Or these types of applications aren't, there's no public notice for these because it's a subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to, excuse me, to comments, questions, or motions from the committee members.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan recommendations.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Gerald, seconded by Ryan to approve this based on staff's recommendations. Are we ready for the question?
Ready.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sorry. Not hearing, none opposed. That item is passed. Item 21-03-03 SNAP subdivision. Is this Judy or? Vivian?
Yes.
Yep.
So the applicant is requesting to create 7 lots accessed by existing varying width right-of-way, and the varying width right-of-way is Pine Point. And this is subdivision plan here. The applicant has submitted theirself, as you've seen in the report. So 7 lots. This is Pine Point Road here coming across, and this portion of the right-of-way, it is going across another property, but the over here on the map here, you can see where the right-of-way has been. It's going to be extended across, and then therefore will not be going across another property's land to get the access to lot 1, 2, and 3. So the right-of-way will come across the properties and come down here. So they'll all have a right-of-way to the property. And you see the lots here all range between 1.3 to 5.9 acres. So it is zoned, the LD zone in the St. Croix corridor. And it is an existing right-of-way from Ledge Road. And as I said, Pine Point Road. And so that is the intersection at Ledge Road. And that is the Pine Point Road here going into the property. So lots 1 and 3 about the St. Croix corridor. So the limited development zone, there's a 30-meter setback. So no new construction is done within that setback. Like I said, the lot area ranges from 1.3 to 5.9 acres, and it'd be residential cottages proposed for the lots. Proposed lots 1 and 3 fall under the LD zone of the St. Croix corridor regulation. So any development within 30 meters of the ordinary high water mark must conform to the regulation, and that is the high water mark. It is not property line. So if the water does come up into the property, it's from the high water mark, not their property lines. It is the opinion of staff that the lots are suitable for the purpose intended. Staff recommends that the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee of the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission approve a private right-of-way for the development of land as shown on Plan Greg Smith subdivision. The final plan of subdivision must be stamped with a private right-of-way note, and the 30-meter limit to development setback being shown on, and the following statement being added to the final plan. Development and tree cutting between the 30-meter setback and the water's edge is limited and controlled by the St. Croix corridor zoning regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is here. Gregory Smith, if you wish to speak, I promote you now, so just make sure I unmute yourself.
Yes, thanks for hearing me. Fairly new at this. I brought this property to primarily build for myself, but I'm also going to be selling at least one, probably 2 lots, and closer to the water. I'm going to have the center one there. I think it's numbered met 2021-2. Probably going to be for myself, whereas SMET 2021-1 and SMET 2021-3 will be other sales. I've listed the other lots just in case. The area is secluded, which is what I like. I'd like to keep it that way. I've also considered the wetlands and waterways, made sure that there's room for that. It's power accessible, and the road down there is accessible even in the wintertime. I noticed that I'm just questioning the right-of-way of access. It comes in right off of Pine Point Road. The one access would have to go right through to SMET 2021-2 because of the landscape in behind that. But the other right away, if I go down to lot number 3, SMET 2021-3, would the right of way would come from the existing right of way north of that.
So excuse me, Mr. Smith, so is it different than what we have in front of us here in this application?
No, I have the 2 right of ways. One comes right down Pine Point Road and comes across the 2 lots. And the other one is a right of way that crosses the land about probably 500 meters or probably 300 meters up. And then I have another one going north to south.
Okay.
Where did you see the map of that again?
Yeah.
Does Judy agree with that?
I guess we're just want you mentioned that you were questioning the right of way, so that's why I asked the question. Is it different than what's in front of us?
No, it should be the same, but it just the way it was explained, it kind of drew questions in my mind.
Okay, good. Maybe if you want to see the map, you say?
Yeah, I'd like to.
If we could just see that map again on the screen, and Judy could comment. No. That was there.
Yeah, just.
Okay.
Oh.
There we go.
This one. Okay, so yeah, so the right of way coming down here, Deer Point Road, and then there's a right of way that goes across the property below lot 6 and 7.
Yes.
And then there's the right of way that comes down on the side of lot 5 to lot 2 and 3.
Okay. There's also a right of way that comes right down Pine Point Road and crosses the former one lot that's not mine, and then it crosses 2 of mine.
Yep.
Comes right down into there.
Yes, yeah, and that's shown on the plan. So that's intercepting 1 and 4.
Okay.
That's the existing right of way that's there now, which you do have access across.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the one up here that goes directly across is also on the original deeds too.
It may be, it's just not mapped, yeah.
No, it comes down. it goes straight across, but doesn't come down.
Mhm. And right of ways you will see are not normally mapped. A private access that gets a PID is mapped. So if you create a private access, which we have in the past, if you create a private access as a lot and give it a variance, then they're mapped. But because it's a right of way, they are not unfortunately mapped all the time. So this one, it does show part of the road, but it does not show all. So it only shows what was built. It doesn't actually show every right of way. It just shows what road has been built.
I understand now.
Yeah. Thank you. Was that all for you, Mr. Smith?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I thought he was done.
Okay, well, that's good for me. I understand what Judy said, and that's what I thought too.
All right, thank you. Any other speakers, Alex?
If there's anybody else who wishes to speak to the application, did note that this one didn't receive public notice because it's a subdivision, and these types of files do not go for public notice.
All right. Okay. Comments, questions, or motions?
Good question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vance.
Judy, if we can see that diagram again, please. So the right of way under lot 6 and 7, and then extending southward to be the access for lot 5, is actually a right of way created on the property of the property owner. So you can't create yourself a right of way. So it doesn't exist until lot 5 is deeded.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so 6, 7, 5, 6, and 7 have no right of way until they're sold and deeded. So what provision is there to make sure that that happens?
I believe we talked about this the last application, and I think I'd like to defer to Alex, as we do not have a policy in effect right now, so maybe he could speak more to that. But as of right now, there is no policy in effect for lot creations on right-of-ways. So if Alex would like to take this one, he can, but that's all I could say on that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
So I actually did talk to Judy about this. Mr. Smet had submitted this application without the right-of-way shown for lot 5, and it wasn't shown as it is here. And in the member Vance, he's correct. This right-of-way won't exist until that lot 5 is created. So while this is a tentative plan, the tentative plan can show a number of features that won't appear in the final plan of subdivision. So a final plan of subdivision won't show this right away, but this is for the purposes of the approval of the private right of way, so you have an understanding of where that will be located. But it doesn't need to and cannot show on the final plan of subdivision until that lot 5 is sold to someone else.
But the application here is the creation of 7 lots.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That does answer my question. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Brian.
Did I understand that this right of way is basically for a walking trail or biking trail? Did I just hear that in there somewhere?
I didn't hear it, but I had a duty.
That was the last one.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that was for the last submission.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
No questions, I'll make a motion that we accept staff recommendation.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, too late, Joe. Technology got ahead of you. Gerald Gass.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved by Dennis and seconded by Gerald that we accept, that we approve the subdivision based on staff's recommendations. Regard to the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's everybody. All opposed? That matter is closed. Subdivision is approved. We'll now move to the last subdivision, the Baird subdivision. Excuse me, item 21-03-04.
Okay, so the applicant is requesting to create 2 lots accessed by existing 6-meter right-of-way. And I'd just like to say that now there is 2 lots there. The lots are being reconfigured. So we're not creating any density with these 2 lots. So you can see lot 2101, lot 2102. There are 2 lots now, but they're going to be reconfigured so that each lot does have a cottage and a house on it, and both will have their own, both now have their own septic systems. And so this is being created off of Davis Lane and Pokalogan, and it is zoned mixed use in the LaPro Musquash Rural Plan. And the existing right of way from Pokalogan Road is Davis Lane. And as you can see in the pictures, Davis Lane and then existing dwellings on the pros lots, you'll see 31 and the next cottage down 33 are on the same lot right at the moment, and they will be split in between to create 2 lots, but again, not creating any more density. So the pros lots comply with the minimum lot standards. The right-of-way agreement can be transferred to the reconfigured lots. So it is the opinion of staff that the lots are suitable for the purpose intended. Staff recommends that the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee of the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission approve a private right-of-way for the development of land as shown on Josephine A and R. Gordon Bar subdivision. The final plan of subdivision must be stamped with a private right-of-way note. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. We'll move to the applicant to speak if they're online. Alex.
Mr. Chair, we have the applicant Matthew Blaine wishing to speak.
Okay.
Matthew, just make sure you're muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. Blaine.
Hi, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is Matt from Hughes Surveys and Consultants on behalf of the client. Basically, just to echo what Judy said there, that both dwellings are existing currently, and that there are 2 existing lots there. So in the end, it's just a reconfiguration along an existing private access. So we're not asking to extend the private access or change it at all. It's just to reconfigure the lots on the existing access. And as mentioned by Judy, that they are served separately with their own septic and well and power.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other speakers, Alex?
If somebody wishes to speak, they can choose to raise their hand. Again, noting this won't be a public notice, so don't have anybody.
No, we'll move on to the discussion then. If there's somebody there, they can butt in, but open to the committee for questions and comments and or motions.
I motion that we accept staff recommendation as per the documentation that we have before us.
Second.
Moved by Brian, seconded by Gerald, that we approve this application based on staff recommendations. Ready for the question. If anybody has a question to answer, anybody, I know the technology is a little bit delayed here, so just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak if they want to.
Good.
I'm good.
Good. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none opposed, that application is approved. We'll now move to item number 8, views on bylaws and regulations. And is this Alex or Xander?
Mr. Chair, there's several St. Andrews bylaws and then one Town of St. Stephen bylaw. So I will be doing the zoning bylaw for the Town of St. Stephen and the PAC bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews. And Xander, I could give it to Xander if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
It's your choice.
Okay, I'm happy to go. So we're gonna start with views on, it's two bylaws technically, but they're for the same property and relate to each other. They're essentially the same bylaw. So technically there's two. One's an amendment to the municipal plan, that's MP 20-03, and one is to the zoning bylaw, Z 2101. You'll notice it's no longer Z 1804. So that should actually be Z 2102. That's the view on the bylaw. Z 2101 is St. Andrews' new zoning bylaw as of Monday night. So this is regarding 108 Sophia Street, and that is the old medical clinic in town. For those who are familiar, where Dr. Peer, I think was the most recent doctor there. It's been a medical clinic for over 50 years. The town became owners in 2009. They now have the new wellness center open, or just about ready to open to the public in the W.C. O'Neill Arena. And they have put 108 Sophia on the market to get some money for it, and hopefully get something that aligns with the town's goals. And to that end, they've entered into a conditional agreement with Doctors Tammy Matheson and Krista McAllister. Krista McAllister is the owner of Mayfield Vet Clinic in St. Stephen, or just outside St. Stephen technically. And Dr. Tammy Matheson works there and was an owner until 2014. So they've been in the Charlotte County vet game for a long time. The property is currently serviced residential, and the medical clinic was a legally non-conforming use. So for a new commercial use, they've had to submit an application to rezone to that mixed use zone. And as well as the rezoning and dealing with the zoning bylaw, it's also designated as a residential property on the municipal plan's generalized future land use map, and that needs to change to commercial in order for the rezoning to occur. So those are your two bylaws, and you can see why I am treating them as the same. That's the property there. It's that L-shaped property in the town plat. There's the aerial shot of it, so it's a fairly large building. And there's parking there already. There's the street view. And as always, we look at the municipal plan policies. So economic policies provide economic climate conducive to investment and growth of year-round employment opportunities while protecting and enhancing the quality of life in St. Andrews. So this will be year-round employment for several individuals, and will obviously enhance the quality of life for pet owners. And there's also an institutional policy that council acknowledges residents' wellness, healthcare wellness, and that healthcare facilities and services are an important element of the community and a significant factor in attracting and retaining residents. You do have to extend this a little bit to animals, but people get lots of mental health benefits from their animals. I'm sure any pet owner will tell you that. And so having healthy animals generally equals healthy humans. In a lot of ways, a vet clinic is quite similar to a medical clinic. You have people driving up, parking, going in for appointments, usually for no longer than an hour. It's not a high traffic place. It's open from regular business hours. And the medical clinic has operated there for over 50 years with no incidents. The one slight departure is that animals may be kept overnight. Although the applicants have told me this is usually very, very rare. And if an animal is sick enough to be kept overnight, it's usually shipped to an emergency clinic in Riverview. And further to that, the kennels, this is a condition, the kennels must be inside. And I've also been informed that not only will they be inside, but those rooms will be soundproofed. So I think really there won't be any issues from noise. And just in case there are, the town does have a noise bylaw that can be enforced. The obvious benefit here is that the closest vets are in St. Stephen and St. George. So this would provide a great service for existing pet owners in St. Andrews, and there are a lot. As well, it's going to help attract future pet owners. Lots of people moving to New Brunswick, and lots of them want to live in small towns, and a small town that has amenities like a veterinary clinic, that's going to be more attractive than one that doesn't. It's also going to bring people from the rest of the peninsula. Maybe they were traveling to St. George or St. Stephen before, but now they'll be coming into St. Andrews and spending an hour there, maybe grabbing a coffee. So not huge economic benefits, but still something. And because this is in the town plat and does have some heritage features, that has to be taken into consideration as well. The town has put conditions of sale on this, but we've also recommended that council set some conditions to preserve the specific features. And that can be done as part of the rezoning process. And these are all the conditions that we've recommended council set. All kennels must be in the main building. If in the future there's a commercial use that is not the veterinary clinic, it must be similar to or compatible with the veterinary clinic and the residential neighborhood in the opinion of the development officer. And this is about those specific heritage elements, that the appearance of the upper windows and gables must be maintained. If repair of an existing window or gable element is not possible, replacement must be of the same building materials or an adequate facsimile size and style of the element being replaced. Vinyl siding must not be used in any repair or restoration if restoration of the current siding is not possible. Materials that mimic the current siding, such as engineered wood, concrete, fiberboard, or equivalent must be used. And these were conditions that we went over with council and with town staff, as well as the applicants. And most of them are in the conditions of sale as well as being conditions of the rezoning. So the recommendation is that PRAC give its written views in favor of both bylaws. And yes, this is a spot zoning. So you're welcome to make a comment about that if you wish. This is town land the town is trying to sell. So I think the town is pretty motivated to sell it, but you're obviously welcome to give views any way that you wish. And I'm sure the town will appreciate them.
Thank you, Xander. First, we'll have any questions of Xander, and then we'll have a discussion and try and reach a consensus as to our views. Any questions?
I have a quick one.
Vero? Who was first? Was that Vance?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He can go first.
Okay, all right. Well, you're on the screen, so go ahead.
Okay, Xander, in the condition that any future use of the property be similar to or compatible with, that is any future use once the veterinary clinic is closed or gone, you're talking about, or any future use that they may have?
It's gonna apply to both, because they've talked, they might want to have some auxiliary use to the vet clinic. Actually, I guess it would only be for this use. It'd only be related to this use. So if somebody else came and bought it, I guess I'm not actually sure. Maybe Alex can chime in here if these conditions will run with the property, or the conditions of sale, they wouldn't. They're not on the deed. Anything on the deed is going to run with the property. But with the development agreement or council conditions, I'm not entirely sure. So Alex, if you got any.
Mr. Chair, if I could. If the council does this by resolution or by development agreement, it does run with the land. So I think to Vance's point is that I don't know exactly the point you're getting at, but potential problem, I guess, down the road is if it, I guess it would have to probably be considered going back to council to amend their conditions, and that's like going to a rezoning basically, if there was a issue. So that may be something to raise with council, that could be, it could cause hiccups in the future.
That's exactly what I was getting at too. Thank you.
I think, if I may, the reason why that's there is this is in a residential neighborhood, and it will, in theory, could have any use that the mixed use zone allows for, which could be commercial, it could be institutional. So I think the town is concerned that while they're allowing this particular commercial use, there may be other ones that could be more intensive that they wouldn't want to see there. So I think that's why this is there.
Well, if that achieves what they're after, then that's, I guess that's the question is, does that gain them what they want?
I would assume so. It's a condition that they wanted to see there, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Gerald, do you have a question?
Pretty much along the same lines, but I was just also kind of wondering that when they designate this for this dog park or things, was it polled around the town, the residential area that they were happy with this decision?
No, I don't think, because it's not to that point yet, is it, Alex?
No,
Yes,
so
no.
this is rezonings and amendments to bylaws, community planning act bylaws like the municipal plan and the zoning bylaw. The idea is that they're actually more serious than variances. So instead of sending a letter to property owners within 100 meters, they are doing public hearings of objections. And there was a public presentation of the municipal plan amendment as well. And these are advertised to the whole community. And just in terms of what we've heard so far, we did do a public presentation this Monday evening of the municipal plan amendment. And there was only one comment on Facebook about that. And it was a neighbor saying, we look forward to having a new vet clinic in town. So we haven't heard any concerns about this from the public yet, but there are 2 public hearings of objection on April 15th to hear those if they exist.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's still ends up being a council decision at some point where we're just basically gonna say yes or no. We think they should proceed with the process that they're doing now. So any other questions? Time?
Mr. Chair, if I could, yes, I actually do have a quick question. Currently, the parking across the street sort of went with the medical. Perhaps this is irrelevant. Let me know if it is. But does the parking go along with this development across the street? Are they folding it in?
I don't think it is. I think the town is selling it separately or keeping it for other purposes. But in addition to the parking in front of the clinic, they have that long driveway, which I think they could add more parking spots.
Would they have to as part of the part of the development? Would they not have to increase their parking a little bit?
I have to look at the specific requirements for that use, and then it might be based on the square footage.
Right. Yeah.
And if they don't have enough parking, then they'll either have to come for variance, or you can find parking in other places, or give payment in lieu of parking. So I can't probably super quickly tell you exactly how much parking they need.
That's fine.
But it is something that would have to be dealt with.
Maybe one thing to note too that relates to Jill's question is that with the new zoning bylaw that was passed by council, there's a system of development permits. And if you need more than 6 vehicle parking, then it's subject to a development permit, and we need to assess all that. So it's one of these things that we would be reviewing prior to the change of use.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? So we'll try and get a consensus around the table, and we'll start with Jill.
I think with, along with what the neighbors said, that it would be a great addition. I think the building calls for it. It's a perfect location for the perfect use. So I'm in favor.
Thank you, Jill. Vance?
I am also in favor.
Thank you. Raymond?
In favor.
Annette?
In favor.
Carol?
In favor.
Brian?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yeah.
Sam? Yes. So, seems that the consensus is that the town is going in the right direction with this, and we would encourage them to continue their process. Sandra, do you have another presentation?
Unless Alex wants me to do the PAC bylaw, that's it for me. That's up to him.
And if PAC is next, I'm gonna just duck out until you're done with that one, and then I'll come back.
I'll cover that one, Xander.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
All right, so I don't have a formal presentation. I want to be quick with our time here. So just to kind of pull up the actual bylaw and just give you guys a look at it. And we can just give you a few points to talk about this. One moment. All right, so everybody can see that?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay, so they're looking to establish the PAC again. We talked about this in December. They still be getting their planning services from the Regional Service Commission, but we need to see what the service agreement will look like because they need to amend that with the Regional Service Commission. So we don't have an exact timeline as to when this would come into play. They did give a reading though as well. So there is a first reading done. So they've requested your views, but I've advised them before third reading, they would need to amend their service agreement contract with the Regional Service Commission. So you can do that. This is a bylaw under the Community Planning Act, but the way the Regional Service Delivery Act works is any portion of a land use planning service may be supplied by the Regional Service Commission, subject to agreement between the two parties. So as I said, this can be done, and a community is looking to do this, and for a variety of reasons. But mainly what I heard when council was discussing this was for the purpose of making sure they have all the people who are local, who want to be on this, can be on this. St. Andrews is probably puts a lot more hours into their planning bylaws than any other community in our region. So it's just a very, very interested community in planning. So they want to go back to try this again. So there's not really much I can go into about like purposes or anything like that, other than to explain that this bylaw is very, very standard, very short, and it's basically taken out of the Community Plan Act. Very perfunctory bylaw. There's not much difference between this one and the town of Rothsay's or the town of Oromocto. It's basically the same bylaw wherever you go. They'll have their own operating policy, kind of like PRAC has bylaws as a subcommittee of the Regional Service Commission, but it's effectively the same thing in legislation as the PRAC. So I can take any questions, but that's about as much I really can present on with this.
Any questions?
Well, what are they asking us to do?
Give your views.
They're asking us to fire us.
They want us to agree with them that they should get rid of us.
It is a funny thing, I know. But the fact is, it's a bylaw under the Community Planning Act, and they're required to ask your views on it. So,
Well, we're not going anywhere. No, we're just kidding.
Well, my views on it are that when we started out, and St. Andrews was one of the first ones to come on, and it behooves us to turn around and say, okay, we're giving them the go-ahead, general feeling that we will accept and just get rid of it. I think they should have something a little more substantial to bring to us for views.
Well, I'll weigh in on that. They don't really have to do that. You know, it's, we're not approving or rejecting anything. We're just simply giving our written views. And, you know, my opinion would be, I wouldn't be in favor. I would not be in favor. I would just say, we have no objection to the road that St. Andrews wants to take. It's their town, it's their decision. You know, it is under contract. So they can, you know, under a contract, you can break a contract anytime you want with conditions. Alex has negotiated, I believe, a different contract with them for planning and so on. So we don't really, you know, have much more to say about it as far as I'm concerned. But I know what you're saying, but it's they've had 3 years and they've decided, from what I'm hearing, that they'd like to have the decision making back in, you know, in their town, which they have a right to do. So there's nothing that we can oppose.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Brian.
My only question, Alex, to you is, we've got a by-election, or not, we have a municipal election coming up in 30 days roughly. Is that going to be the same opinion of the next council and mayor coming in as the current one? Or should they hold off to see what their opinion is? Because they're going to have to live with, if they end the contract now, they may have to renegotiate it again. So I'm just wondering if they should hold off until the new council and mayors are actually in
It
place.
still has to go for public consultation. This is not.
It's actually going to overrun the election, I suppose.
Well, it could, but I've been listening to the council meetings there, and looks like they want to move ahead with it. But it's, I think, did it go to first reading, Alex? And now it has to go to public consultation. So this is, no matter what we say here tonight, it could go to public consultation, and people St. Andrews could say, no, we want to keep PRAC, or yes, they want to have their own back. So it's not a decision that we're going to have very much to say about, other than to give our views on how they should proceed. And you know,
We wouldn't have Jill as a member.
no, that's why she's
Yeah.
recused herself. So
Any reason given, Alex, why they wanted to end the contract?
Well, it's from the discussion I have heard is just that some counselors basically feel like they would like to have a little bit more involvement and be a little bit more aware of what's going on. And I think there's a general sense that if people on the PRAC, or sorry, PAC, the case may be, are from St. Andrews, they'll be a little bit more in the know of what's going on because they're talking to each other more, perhaps. But I'm not totally sure if that's the reason. But that's kind of what the discussion was at council meetings I was listening to.
Thank you. So I guess there's not really much we have to say other than let us know.
no,
Let us
yeah, I
know.
mean, we don't necessarily have to encourage it. To Dennis's point, I mean, we have, you know, my feeling is that they brought us on at a time when there were some very contentious issues, and kind of dumped us right in the middle of it, and we worked pretty hard to make non-biased technical decisions for the town, and if they're not satisfied with that and they wish to have their own PAC, then it's not for us to oppose that. But you know, it's my understanding of this, Alex, is that they have to ask under the legislation for this review.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't be asking this. They would just break the contract and we'd be out. So
do we, Alex, do we say, they're basically saying they want to break the contracts because they would like to have it more personal to the actual residents of their community versus having an unbiased opinion from the outer source. I would almost think that I guess the reason we're in there is that we took the pressure off the political point of being in that area to be literally battered by some people within the town, where we're sort of a neutral, and to say that we really don't know what's going on down there after the 3 years.
Yeah,
I disagree with that.
well, I do too. That was the flavor at the time. That was part of the reasoning that there was a PAC that was dysfunctional, and they were not getting decisions made expeditiously and so on, and the council of the day wanted a non-biased third party, and we did it. So, but nonetheless, it's still their right to do whatever they want. So
I guess the question is basically, are you really sure? You know, the other thing is, like Alex just made a presentation basically on the bylaws and all this sort of thing. Was that also dropped from our contract, or that's these people?
no, they're still doing the plan.
They'll still do the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only thing is they want a PAC instead of having us, and if those are their wishes, and they already had first reading, and they want to proceed with public hearings or objections to it, then whether we like it or not, I'm not just spending more time on it here tonight. We can send our views and say that we have no objection to what they're doing. You know, we can stay here for another hour or something.
I guess the only thing I'd add to that, Mr. Chair, is that you're right, always. The bottom line is, my comment, I don't know how to word a very simple sentence like, are you really sure? Like,
well, they're sure because they've already gone first reading.
Yeah, I guess so.
The council sure, but they have to go to public hearings or public objections, I guess is the way to say it. And they still have to take this before the people of St. Andrews. So if the people of St. Andrews say, nothing doing, we like the third party non-biased, then they may have to go with that. But the people in St. Andrews say, yeah, it's no time.
I'm just going back to the one that we spent several hours, several weeks in an auditorium down there, and the mayor came back afterwards and said, I'm so glad you fellows are here because it gives a better outside, or not outside, but an unbiased opinion. It takes the pressure off us so we can make a decision. We recommend, but they do make a decision, but okay, but I'm with Sam, there's not much we do.
Unfortunately, there's a mayor and 8 other councilors.
Yeah.
So my understanding is they're sort of split down the middle. So that's why they're going to take it to the public hearings. So,
Mr. Chair, on that point, if I may interject, there's no requirement to do public hearings on PAC bylaws, what was the building bylaws, subdivision bylaws, and several other what's more considered administrative bylaws. So this isn't something that wouldn't necessarily go to public hearing. However, they do sometimes do additional public hearings than what's required. So I'm not sure if the public will have a hearing on it.
Oh, I thought they said that they were.
Do you know? Xander seems to know.
Yes, if I may, they'll be doing I guess it's not a formal public hearing, but they will be doing a public feedback session. I believe it's this coming Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
March 22nd.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that was on the council the other night.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm open to write whatever letter committee once written, you know, it's not a lot to me.
I guess my only statement again, I'll say it again, and Alex, you're probably right to comment, but are you sure you thought it the whole way through? Yes, it's 3 years ago, take the pressure off you. And we did take the responsibility of being, I think we applied good governance. I think we gave them good service. And before you actually cut the contract, I'm sure. Anyway, that's all, you know, just put a, I don't know how you word it, but
Well,
I don't know if we should even bother. I'm not like.
I don't know, that's almost like we're applying for a job, and that's,
Yeah, I know.
that's not what we're doing.
What's your feelings, Alex? Are you, I'm gonna ask you, because you run the operation, what's your cut? Obviously, you did a lot of work in getting all these things under one roof.
Mr.
And,
Chair, sorry. Oh, I didn't actually provide a recommendation here. It's not always required for staff to provide a recommendation when you're giving views. So the committee can kind of just say whatever really you'd like to say to council on this. But if I was to give my views, I'd be more thinking about, is this compatible with Community Planning Act? Yes, it is. Perhaps the only thing I would suggest that they are reminded again of is that prior to third reading of this bylaw, they will be required to amend their service contract with the Regional Service Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would say then, along with what you said, is that in my opinion, I would say that we have no comment on their proposal, and we remain willing to serve them if council so desires. If council does not desire, then they will have to amend their bylaws or amend their contract, as you mentioned a minute ago. How's that? I don't know any other way to say it.
I think Alex, I did read two statements, Alex, between yours and.
I can repeat what Sam just said. Okay, so the PRAC has no comment on the proposal. However, it remains willing to serve if they wish. If council does not wish that, then council is advised that they need to amend their service contract with the Regional Service Commission.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Okay. Jill and Vance. Not Jill, sorry, Vance. What do you think?
Well, I think it's, it's obvious they want to dive into this and see where it goes, whether the public's for it or not. Obviously the current council is looking to do something. I don't think it will hurt to remind them that the PRAC is configured in such a way that they are well represented. We're not everybody is on the outside with a totally unbiased and unattached opinion for their particular needs. That's the whole purpose of the way we're configured, that all of the areas are well represented here. So I'm inclined to say and agree with you, Sam, that not so much that I don't really have an opinion, or I'm not in favor of you doing this. I think you have the best solution, kind of thing. But if this is where you want to go with it, then go with it, kind of thing, right? We certainly don't want to hold them back, but I wouldn't give favorable comments on it.
Okay, is there some way, Vance, we can incorporate in a short sentence what your feelings were as far as the good representation and so on, or is there a line you would like to put in there that doesn't show favoritism or whatever?
Yeah, I guess we've been testing these committees for quite some time, and this is sort of the solution that we find works best, is to have everybody represented at the table, but also enough unbiased and unattached opinions that it levels the playing field on these decisions.
Okay. Well, maybe we could say something like, we thank the St. Andrews Town Council for giving us the opportunity over the last 3 years to serve them, and would willingly serve them in an unbiased fashion in the future, or maybe not say unbiased, but serve them in the same professional fashion that we have for the past 3 years, something along those lines.
Mr. Chair.
Or do we need to do it? I don't know.
Just another thought went through my mind is that one of the most detrimental things that I see about this is that this becomes more politically oriented in the town.
Yeah, but
versus where we are.
that's nothing to do with us.
No, what I'm saying, in their opinion, when they go to that,
but
they want to go internal, but that's up to them, what they want to do.
That's up to them. That's
We can't tell them.
we can't tell them what to do, and we have to be careful. As chairman, I want the message to go to them that we have appreciated and enjoyed working for them and would like to do it in the future. We don't want to be burning any bridges here, because the wrong view or the wrong letter would seal the deal in a second if we, have wrong views on it. So
And they may want to come back in the future.
they may want to come back in the future, once they have some public consultation, they may decide. So I think it warrants a professional, sort of
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
lots of words here, but
Mr. Chair, what's your opposing that statement is that it's a done deal, but, their decision is already been done, where it may be, it may indicate maybe you would prefer to continue serving them, in this fashion.
well, no, I don't think it's a done deal. I think that
Well, I just think maybe you don't want to give them the impression, we think that it's already a done deal.
no, well, we're not. That's why we're saying we have no objection to the process that they're going through.
Yeah.
We have enjoyed working for them,
Yeah.
and would enjoy continuing if they so wish.
Exactly.
Is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm trying to collect the thoughts here to put it to words. Could I just repeat? And maybe if that's acceptable to the committee, you can move with something like this. So we'd like to thank the town council for the opportunity to serve them the last 3 years. We would also be willing to continue serving the town in the same professional capacity as a committee well represented by the whole region.
Perfect.
That's good. Yeah, you got it.
That's what we've been saying pretty well. We're just short and sweet, and we want them to know that that we're still willing to do it if they want us to, and that we do not want to show any resentment whatsoever for a town's decision. That's just not the way to do things. So I think that statement is fine with me.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
Go for it. One more?
One more.
St. Stephen, is it, or?
Yeah.
Somebody want to get Jill back?
Yes. Come on back, Bill. You're still working for us.
Oh, darn. Here's a second. All right. I'm going to go through this way quicker than this full presentation required, but I can stop if at any point if need be. I realize you guys have been amazing. We're now 3 hours, so I'm going to try to keep this tight. Zoning bylaw Z2. It's an update to the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Stephen. They adopted a new municipal plan with Dillon Consulting in September. So this is a response to the municipal plan. There is a couple new things in the zoning bylaw: visual zones, expansive land uses, a balance between freedoms and development control, urban design, and housing options. So these are the big things coming out of the municipal plan priorities. But also the visual zone piece is something that was a bit of an innovative approach, which planning staff had been thinking about over the last year or so. So sketched out design criteria instead of tables with numbers for zoning bylaw. Now, it's a bit unusual, but this is kind of the concept, and this is what it looks like in the finished product. Instead of having 6 pages for a complicated downtown zone, you got 2 pages. You got the first page with the uses, downtown commercial use, high density residential use, and then your accessory. And then you have this downtown zone standards. You have to build in accordance with what's listed here on the image. So heights listed, traditional building materials are listed, things which were normally in the bylaw, but buried in cross-referenced in tables in multiple pages. So instead of doing all that, we also have a bird's eye view, a site plan, a typical site plan that covers all the items that you need to address in zoning. So it's an innovative approach. Nobody really does this, but we proposed it to their council and they really liked it. So this is their mini home zone, R1 zone. Expansive definitions is also a new concept. Instead of listing, 11 or 20 things that are allowed in your downtown zone, we put together a list of the things they want and a list of the things they don't want. And there's some discretion elements involved, but all zoning, as you guys know, involves a lot of discretion, and there's lots of different opinions always. But you try to draft something that's tight without being overwhelming for the readers. We wanted to have something user-friendly and also sensible for what they're trying to achieve. So you have something with broad strokes here, means the use building structure for the purpose of buying, selling commodities, office or institutional uses, restaurants and bars, artisan manufacturing and microbrewery. Those are also defined. You can see it's italicized. Entertainment area, hotel, retail, or supply business services, but distinguished from other uses such as industrial, warehousing, vehicle repair, vehicle sales, leasing, contractor yards, utility and communication stations, adult entertainment, or other similar uses. So that clause, other similar uses, is definitely a discretionary one, but it is possible to have that in zoning language. So you got a new development permit system, just like St. Andrews. We have to do this because the new Building Code Administration Act divorces building from development. So change of land use, change of main use, change of secondary use, like a home-based business, for example. We had that with the Logan Binney file. Well, that would require a development permit even if you weren't building a structure. Standards for mini homes. So mini homes, and right now in St. Stephen, they're not allowed anywhere. They're allowed in a zone that just one zone allows it, and only one property zone that. But lots of people would like to build them, and you're just not allowed to do it. So instead of prohibiting it everywhere, allowing it with conditions. This is similar to Harvey's approach, and the one we worked a long time with the McAdam Council on. So making sure the mini home is compatible as much as possible with conventional stick-built housing, making sure it's new, and if you're going to arrange it any way other than parallel, it has to come to this committee to set terms and conditions to make it as compatible with stick-built housing as possible, or rejected with strict terms and conditions, essentially. Flexible secondary uses. This is something that's also a new concept that council was very interested in doing. So in all zones, the PRAC may permit another use in another zone as a small scale secondary use subject to terms and conditions. You got to have to consideration for these things: health, welfare, general safety. Reasonable terms and conditions can be applied, and rejecting those when your conditions, which are reasonable, cannot be met. However, small scale secondary uses cannot be heavy industrial uses. So this is quite an expansive flexibility, but they wanted to be able to have more people to be able to do home-based business activity with a lot more people coming in to do remote work, for example, maybe having a little bit of space to store products they're selling on Amazon, for example. Ideas like that are not strictly, shouldn't be strictly allowed or fully allowed. It should be coming to committee and consulting with neighbors to address impacts. Sea level rise and flood prone areas. This is something St. Stephen has never had, but we recommended they adopt standards for areas that are going to be subject to the river rising. Very similar to what you saw in St. Andrews, with some modifications. So limiting what can be done without geotechnical studies and limiting tree removal where trees exist and keep soil stability intact. This is the area that's going to be subject to the sea level rise zone. And we're also calling it water hazards because it also applies to areas that are in proximity to wetlands. The housing in St. Stephen is very tight for rental, and that's one of the goals of the municipal plan to encourage more development. We've upzoned most of the community from R1 to R2. There's only a few new subdivisions in St. Stephen that have remained in R1 as they're most appropriate to, and basically all developed within a few years of each other. So the style is mostly single family or duplex, whereas R2 could have up to triplex. There's also a medium density zone, so missing middle housing. This is townhouses, very small apartment buildings, but this is directed to arterial and collector roads. And ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, are also allowed to be done. So there's a definition for medium density residential. Here's the zoning map. So normally the most predominant zone is a R1 zone. Here, the most predominant zone is actually an R2. So you can see Abbott Street, for example, is an R1. The Bell subdivision there, R1, but everything else is in R2. Along Union Street and Milltown Boulevard, where these are collectors, you can have higher density as well as Church Street there, because you got the capacity for more traffic on those roads. Downtown design, they have a lot of criteria for facade improvements. St. Stephen has had a pretty sawtooth downtown over the years, and the buildings that have been fixed up in the 80s, some of which basically just did all aluminum siding. It's really done a number on the downtown. So there's a big push to increase the standards. Basically, there needs to be tied in with a secondary municipal plan for downtown in St. Stephen to really orchestrate this and involve aligning their capital investment to really push for some downtown revitalization and redesign. But basically, traditional building materials, windows and doors are going to be regulated for new builds, and any changes have to come in compliance. This one actually have changed. This is just a sketch. This was from an earlier council presentation. I should have updated this photo, but this is also going to include the town square around the library in Five Kings. But there's this opportunity to do a back alley type of project here. This is an overlay zone, and council is very interested in this. It should be tied in with a secondary municipal plan for downtown. As I said, to coordinate public investment, maybe do cobblestones back here. I don't know if anybody's walked back there beside the old Napa building or some of the alleyways here, but this kind of alleyway development is very, I guess you can see it in St. John and some other places, and it's been very popular and is very good to encourage a downtown revitalization effort. So this is called for in the municipal plan, as downtown revitalization is one of their big things, in addition to housing, and to also deal with the effects of climate change. So I will end it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, looks awesome.
Okay.
Lots of new and innovative things.
I seen some things in it that I like. You know, cobblestones and so on, like they have in the Heritage Block there in St. John is very attractive and so on. And when you read some of the stuff from tourists and people that come in on the cruise ships and so on, you know, that's a very popular thing that tourists like to see is some of that heritage stuff. So I certainly wouldn't have any objection to them going down that road. Vance and Jill, I think you said yes.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Okay, Alex, that staff write a letter to the town council, I'm sorry, that PRAC is in agreement with their process.
Yep.
Next meeting would be the standard third Thursday.
Yeah, the April 15th. Yep.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
You've done it. Like a dinner.
We're done.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a long night. Everybody, thanks for your good.
Appreciate you all, guys. Thank you.
So,
Alex, can you look that thing up for me before I leave?
Bye.
Good to see ya.